This video is to review your last quiz in my class. This is a quiz about big ideas number 1 and 2 and supporting ideas number 5 and 6. These 4 concepts right here will take up about 40% of your FCAT test. Question number 1 says the local athletic center offers gymnastics, ballet, and jazz dance classes 3 days a week from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Of the 145 members that take the classes, approximately 1/4 are enrolled in jazz, and 2/5 take ballet. Estimate the number of people taking gymnastics. So the first thing we do always when we're working with a word problem is to set up our known and our unknown. So I've already done that here for us. The known, what do we know? We know that 1/4 of the students take jazz and 2/5 of the students take ballet, and there are a total of 145 people in this gym. The unknown, we don't know how many. It says estimate the number of people. We don't know how many people out of, this should say 145. We don't know how many people out of the total 145 members take gymnastics. So here we go. First thing I need to do is figure out how many people take jazz. 1/4 of 145 members take jazz. So I'm going to multiply 1/4 times 145, and I get about 36. It says estimate in the question, so it's okay for me to estimate in my calculations. Here's what I did. When you multiply fractions, remember you just multiply straight across. So this would have been 145 times 1, which is just 145, over 4 times nothing, because we imagine that this is over 1, right? 4 times 1 is 1. 145 over 4 is the same as 145 divided by 4, and I've done that here. 4 goes into 14 3 times with 2 left over. 4 goes into 25 6 times, and there is a remainder, but since we're estimating, I just left it at that. 36 people take jazz. The reason we're forgetting about the remainder is because the remainder will be a decimal or a fraction, and I can't have fractions of people, right? People only come in whole form. So 36 is good enough. Now let's move on. I need to figure out how many people are taking ballet. 2/5 take ballet out of 145 members. Same process, we're going to multiply 2/5 times 145. 2 times 145 divided by 5. And you get approximately 60. All right, last but not least, 145 people minus the 36 that are taking jazz, minus the 60 that are taking ballet, equals 49 people, or about 50 people take gymnastics. Number 2 says Trey purchased a boombox that was marked down to 1/2 of its original price. The boombox was then marked down further to 1/3 of the marked down price. The original price was $60. What was the total amount of the discount? The most common mistake in this question was people didn't read carefully and they forgot that it was asking about how much the discount was. Some of you gave me the value that Trey paid after he got all his discounts, but that's not what the question was asking for. The question asked for the discount amount. So let's set up our known and our unknown. What do we know about this problem? We know that the original boombox price was $60. Then his first discount was half off. His second discount was was 1/3 off. But I noticed that in the question, it actually doesn't say the word off. I put that there because this was another common mistake. You were thinking half off because usually when you see discounts in a store, you see 50% off, 30% off, something like that. It usually doesn't tell you a discount in terms of a fraction. And in this case, it did. In this case, it says marked down to 1/2 of. That's not the same as half off. 1/2 of its original price. 1/3 of the marked down price. Not 1/3 off, 1/3 of. So let's fix our known and our unknown. 1/2 of the price. 1/3 of the markdown price. What do we not know? Our unknown is $60 minus half of $60 times 1/3 of the markdown price, which is this. It'll make more sense when we do it. The first discount. The first discount was half of the original price. So $60 minus half of $60 is $30. That was easy. You could have done that in your head. You didn't really need to write it down. Now that $30, that's our marked down price because it's after the first discount. It's a marked down price. The second discount is 1/3 of that marked down price. 1/3 of $30, that's easy. You could probably also do that in your head. $10, right? That's the price he paid. But I'm not looking for the price he paid. I'm looking for the discount because the question asks me, what was the total amount of the discount? The total amount of the discount is the original price, $60, minus $10, which is the price he paid, equals $50. Here's question number 3. Ben and Leanne are decorating cookies they baked. They plan to make 9 plates to give to their friends as holiday gifts. Each plate has 8 cookies on it, and it takes them 3 minutes to decorate the first 4 cookies. If they continue at this rate, how long will it take them in total minutes to decorate all of the cookies? Set up our known and our unknown. What do we know about this question? We know that these 2 people need 9 plates with 8 cookies on each plate, and it takes them 3 minutes for 4 cookies. You can read the bar line of a fraction as the word per. As a side note, for example, when I drive 60 miles an hour, that's the same as saying I drive 60 miles per 1 hour. So anytime you see a word problem where you can use the word per, you can set it up as a fraction like this. It takes them 3 minutes for 4 cookies. 3 minutes per 4 cookies. Also, anytime you see the word rate, that also indicates to you that you can set a relationship between 2 variables up as a fraction, right? The word rate is a fraction expression of 2 variables. What's a variable? A variable is anything that you can change. So in this case, 3 minutes per 4 cookies. Unknown, the time for 9 plates. So what should I do first? Probably I need to figure out how many total cookies I need, right? Step 1, find the total amount of cookies. 9 plates times 8 cookies is 72 total cookies. That was simple. Step 2, find the time needed for 72 total cookies. If 3 minutes are needed for 4 cookies, then how many minutes are needed for 72 cookies, right? If 3 minutes are needed for 4 cookies, then how many minutes are needed for 72 cookies? Well, 3 cookies per 4 minutes, question mark minutes, 3 minutes per 4 cookies, question mark minutes per 72 cookies. We're just going to cross multiply. 72 times 3 is 216, divided by 4 is 54 minutes. Number 4 says, Alicia spent $32 for 10 gallons of gasoline at a gas station in Tallahassee, Florida, and then a week later she spent $36 for 12 gallons of gas at a gas station in Thomasville, Georgia. So we need to set up our known and our unknown. The price per gallon is what they're looking for, the difference in price per gallon. Now, they didn't give us the information in price per gallon. They gave it to us in 2 separate values, one for the price and one for the gallons. So we need to put it in a form that has one value to represent price per gallon. What is the difference in price per gallon that Alicia paid at these two gas stations? Difference, that's a key word. It means that we're going to end up doing subtraction. So our known and our unknown are over here. Known, we know that she paid $32 for 10 gallons at one place and $36 for 12 gallons at another place. Unknown, we're trying to find the difference in price per gallon. So our first step is we need to figure out how to represent these values in a price per gallon format. Now, if you remember, a couple of questions ago, I explained that you can read the bar of a fraction as the word per. And the example I gave you was, if I'm driving 60 miles per hour, I can show it like this in a fraction form, 60 miles per 1 hour, or 60 mph. Here we're finding per gallon, so let's set it up. $32 per 10 gallons minus $36 per 12 gallons. Whenever you're subtracting fractions, you need to find a common denominator. That's the most important part of subtracting or adding fractions. Find a common denominator first. So, a common denominator between 10 gallons and 12 gallons, I selected 60 gallons. So, let's see, how do I get from 10 to 60 in the denominator? Well, I need to multiply it by 6. So whatever you do to the bottom, you have to do the same thing to the top. 10 times 6 is 60. 32 times 6 is 192. Minus this value. How do you get from 12 gallons to 60 gallons in the denominator? Well, you got to multiply it by 5. Whatever you do to the bottom, you have to do to the top. 12 times 5 is 60. 36 times 5 is 180. Now I can subtract and keep the denominator the same. 192 minus 180 is 12 over 60. Now we're going to simplify the fraction. That means $1 for every 5 gallons. $1 per 5 gallons. 1/5, when we change it to a decimal, is 0.2. Or we can say that the difference between the price per gallon at the two gas stations is 20 cents per gallon. That's the difference in price per gallon. 20 cents per gallon. This is question number 5. A patrolman is tracking the speeds of cars on the interstate one afternoon. The bar graph below shows the speeds of some cars in miles per hour. What is the range of the car speeds in miles per hour? You need to remember that the range is the difference between the highest and lowest numbers in a set of data. Here's our set. This was the highest bar. This was the lowest bar. The highest bar is 70 miles per hour. The lowest bar, if we follow the line, shows 40 miles per hour. 70 minus 40, 30 miles per hour. That's it. That's the range. Question number 6. Mrs. Glover asked for volunteers to help with the annual school carnival. 100 students said they were interested. Only 20% of the interested students volunteered to clean up after the carnival. She had 40% of the students say that they wanted to serve on different committees, and the rest said they would work in booths. What fraction of the students said they would work in a booth at the carnival? Set up our known and our unknown. We know that there are 100 total students, 20% of which clean up, 40% of which are on committees. Unknown, the fraction working in booths. Be very careful with this one. Read carefully. It says what fraction of the students work in a booth. A lot of you did this question, and even though all your arithmetic was correct, you were marked wrong because you gave it to me in a percent. It's asking for a fraction. Let's see. Of 100% of the students, that means all 100 kids, all 100 students That's what that 100% means. All 100 of the students. Now, please don't get mixed up. 100% doesn't always mean 100 people or 100 items in a group. 100% means however many the question tells you are in that whole group. In this case, they happen to be the same value. 100 people, 100 students are 100% of the whole group. Okay, if 100% of all 100 students are at the carnival and 20% of them are cleaning up and 40% of them are working on committees, then how many are left over? Well, 40% are left over to work in the booth. But we need to convert 40% to a fraction. 40% is the same as 40 over 100, which we can reduce to 4 over 10 by crossing off the ending zeros. Make sure when you do this, you cross out the same amount of zeros on the numerator and denominator. So in other words, don't cross out 2 zeros here and only 1 here. It's 1 and 1, or 2 and 2, or 3 and 3. Make sense? So in this case, we only have enough zeros to be able to cross out 1 and 1. 4/5 can be reduced further to 2/5. So 2/5 of the students are working in a booth. Number 7. Franklin is working on a project for his chemistry lab. He needs to order the densities of some common elements shown in the table below, in order from least to greatest. Which of the following shows the elements in order from least to greatest density? They gave us all the densities and the elements that he's working with. Sulfur has a density of 2.067. Sodium has a density of 0.917. Carbon has a density of 3.513. Aluminum has a density of 2.698. Lithium has a density of 0.534 grams per cubic centimeter are the units for all of these, but that's not important. We just need to put them in order from least to greatest. These are multiple choice questions, so we have the advantage of being able to do the process of elimination here. Before you begin, when you order from least to greatest, the first number you're trying to identify is the lowest one, right? Lithium is the lowest one. So already, before I even put the rest in order from least to greatest, I can see that I'm able to eliminate choices B and C because they don't start with lithium. Now, before I continue to try to put these in order from least to greatest, I'm going to see if I can make my job easier by eliminating some of my work. Let's look at the differences between this list and this list. Lithium and lithium, they have that as the first element. That's the same. Carbon is at the end in both cases, so figuring out that carbon was the biggest value isn't really going to help me either. Now is where I start to see a change. They've got sodium, aluminum, sulfur, and then sodium, sulfur, and aluminum. In both cases, sodium is first, so I don't have to worry about that. The only difference between list A and list D is the order of sulfur and aluminum, right? Which one is bigger? So instead of trying to list all of these in order from least to greatest, I'm just going to see which one's lower, aluminum or sulfur. Which one's lower between 2.067 and 2.698? Sulfur's lower, sulfur goes first. The answer is D. There are 1,394 students at Monroe Middle School. Approximately 3/8 of them are in 6th grade and 3/10 are in 7th grade. Which of the following would provide the most reasonable estimate of the number of students in 8th grade at Monroe Middle School? We know that middle schools have 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, right? So if we figure out how many are in 6th and 7th, whoever's left over must be in 8th grade. Simple, right? Let's look. Well, first let's look at our answer choices. It says a reasonable estimate, right? Let's look at the question options to guide our thinking. We can see here that they've simplified fractions into thirds, or I'm sorry, they estimated fractions to the nearest third. Here, These are the same exact numbers they gave me. There's no way the right answer can be C or D. I can eliminate those as options right off the bat because C and D have exact values that were given to me in the problem, and they're telling me I need to estimate. I don't need the exact value. I just need to estimate. So, forget about C and D. You've already increased your chances of answering this question correctly by eliminating C and D just by reading the question. So now that I eliminated choices C and D as options, let's figure out between A and B which one is the right answer. Here's how I set it up. One whole, this represents the whole entire middle school. One whole middle school has 3/8 sixth graders and 3/10 seventh graders. If I subtract the sixth graders and the seventh graders from the whole school, I'll be left with the eighth graders. I can see in my problem that they estimated to the nearest third, so I'm going to make my estimation to the nearest third. One whole is just 3/3, because 3 divided by 3 is 1, right? 3/3 minus, I estimated 3/8 to be close to 1/3, and another 3/10 is also close to 1/3. So 3 minus 1 is 1. 3/3 minus 1/3 minus 1/3 is 1. Here's how I got these estimations, because a lot of you set it up correctly and then your estimations were just a little bit off, so you ended up with the wrong answer. Whenever you're trying to estimate and you're not quite sure if a fraction leans closer to 1/3 or 2/3 or whatever it is you're deciding between for your estimate, draw yourself a number line. That's what I did over here. On one side of the number line, since we're dealing in fractions, our highest value is going to be 1. So we're going 0 to 1 here. I divided it in thirds first, right? So here's 1/3, here's 2/3. And then just to help myself think of this conceptually, because I'm more familiar with dealing with halves of whole groups, I just made myself a little marking for 1/2 so that I can see 1/2 lies between 1/3 and 2/3, right? It's just a visualization of the numbers that we're dealing with. 3/8 is really close to 4/8, and 4/8 is really close to half. It's a little bit less than half, so 3/8 goes right here. Let's see. If 3/8 is here on the number line, do you think it's closer to 1/3 or 2/3? It's closer to 1/3, right? So that's how I ended up estimating 3/8 is close to 1/3. Now let's look at 3/10. 3/10 goes right here, a little bit less than 1/3. How did I know that? Well, because I know that 1/3, these are values that I'm familiar with, right? 1/3 is really close to 33.3%, right? And then the 3 keeps going on forever and ever. 33.3333333%. So this number is bigger than 3/10 because 3/10 is 30%. So I know that 3/10 goes a little bit less than a perfect third. And it's very close to a perfect third. So I can estimate that 3/10 is close to 1/3. That's it. 1/3 of the students at the school are 8th graders, but they told us that the total amount of students is 1,394. And you can see just by the word problem, they estimated that to be 1,400. The answer was B. Multiply 1/3 by 1,400 and you'll get the total number of 8th graders.